Hi, baby. You're so good. So we are on reading 9. What's your biggest question? What do you think? You do? Yeah, I think that too. I know. Yeah. Oh, I know. And I was wondering if all the lies will catch up to him. What do you think on that? Yeah. I know. I think so too. Yeah. I think Marty's going to get in trouble. I think he's going to get found out. More lies and more lies. Yeah. You wonder about anything else? What do you think? Yeah. I think the book's about to get exciting. So we will read and we'll listen and find out if there's more to talk about. Reading 9. Oh my gosh, here we go. Yeah, do you think so? Next day, to head off David Howard from riding up from Friendly on his bike, I go down to see him. I tended to Shiloh first, taking a fistful of scrambled eggs left over from breakfast, a bit of bacon, and a half slice of whole wheat white toast that I stuck in my jeans pocket. It's not enough for the dog, I know, but probably more than he'd get from Judd. It's not enough for me either, sneaking off half my breakfast, lunch, and dinner for Shiloh. Like I'm doing means me going half hungry all the time. But if I eat extra, that means Shiloh's costing us money we can't afford. I fill my pockets with wormy peaches before I set out for Friendly, biting off each piece, spitting it out in my hand, and picking out the worms before I put it back in my mouth. It pleased me that Shiloh was sleeping in his lean-to when I'd gone up that morning. The ground was dry there, and I brought him some old gunny sacks from the shed to lie on. Made it more like a bed for him, more like home. The walk to Friendly takes a good long time unless I hitch a ride. I'm not allowed to get in a car with somebody I don't know, but Dad being the mail carrier from this part of the country, I know most everybody that goes by. The first person to come along that day, though, is Judd Travers. And when I hear the sound of a motor and see his truck slowing down, I turn forward again and keep on walking, but he pulls up beside me. Want a lift? He sings out. No thanks, I say, almost there. Where are you going? I couldn't think fast enough to lie. David Howard's. Hell, boy, you ain't even halfway. Hop in. I know I don't have to unless I want, but he's already suspicious on me, and that'll only make it worse. So I get in. See my dog yet? First thing come out of his mouth. I've been looking all over the roads, I tell him. No beagle. Well, I don't think he'd stick to the roads, Judd says. Not a dog as shy as him. Shy as a field mouse, except when he's around rabbits. That's when the man who sold him to me, and he sure was right about that. That's what the man said who sold him to me, and he was sure right about that. How much did you have to pay for him, I ask. Got him cheap because he's shy. $35. Worth a lot more than that as a hunting dog if you could just keep that darn animal home. You gotta treat a dog good if you want him to stick around, I told him, bold as brass. What do you know about it? Judd jerks his head in my direction and then turns the other way and spits the tobacco out his window. You never even had a dog, did you? Well, I figure a dog's about the same as a kid. You don't treat a kid right, he'll run off first chance he gets, too. Judd laughs. Well, if that was true, I would have run away when I was 4. Far back as I could remember, Pa took a belt to me. Big old welts on my back so raw I could barely put my shirt on. I stuck around. Didn't have any other place to go. I turned out, didn't I? Turned out how? Oh, wow. The boldness in my chest is growing, taking up all the air. Now, Judd sounds mad. You trying to be smart with me, boy? No, just asking how you turned out. Somebody who has been beat since he was 4, I feel sorry is what I feel. Judd's real quiet a moment. The big old wad of tobacco in his cheek bobs up and down. Well, don't go wasting your sorry on me, he says. Nobody ever felt sorry for me, and I never felt sorry for nobody else. Sorry's something I can do without. I didn't say anything at all. We reach the road where David Howard lives, and the truck slows down. I can walk from here, I tell him. Thanks, and I get out. But as I come around the truck to cross the street, Judd leans out the window. Like I said, that dog's a shy one. Don't think you'll see much of him near the road, but you keep your eye out for him in the fields. That's where he'll be. More than likely, you'll see him, and all you got to do is whistle. That's what I teach him. I whistle and he comes to me. He gets fed. But he does something I don't like. I kick him clear to China. You see him, just whistle, then hang on to him and I'll come and pick him up, you hear? I hear, I tell him, and keep walking. Here's chapter 7. David Howard's house is about twice as big as ours for about half as many people. Only him and his ma and dad. And Mr. Howard works for the Tyler Star News in Sistersville, and David's ma is a teacher. They're always glad to have me come down to visit. It's partly because David and I are best friends, and partly, I think, because their old house is so big, and the 3 of them get lost in it. It's got 2 floors, 3 counting the basement, and 4 counting the attic. It has 4 bedrooms upstairs, 1 for David, 1 for his folks, and 1 just for company, and 1 for his father's books with a computer in it. Wow, a computer. So that means the story took place not too long ago. Wow, you look for clues like that when you read. Downstairs, there's a big kitchen, a dining room with a fancy light hanging over the table, a parlor, and a side room with lots of windows, just for plants, plus a porch that runs up 3 sides of the house. I told Ma once the Howards had a room just for company, and a room for books, and a room for plants, and she said, well, that's 3 rooms too many. First time I ever saw envy in my ma. David says the house used to belong to his great-granddaddy, so I figure it'll get to be David's someday. Like maybe our little house and the hill and the meadow and the far woods will belong to me and Shiloh, except I'd probably have to share it with Darylyn and Becky and whoever they marry, and that's a whole lot of people for 4 rooms. Marty, Mrs. Howard says when I ring their doorbell. No, it's Marty, Mrs. Howard says when I ring their doorbell. That sounds like church chimes. We're so glad to see you. Come on in. She always means it, too. It's as though she thinks about me even when I'm not there. And then David comes whooping downstairs carrying the helicopter that flies when you pull a string, and pretty soon we're out in the backyard chasing around after the helicopter and telling each other what we've been doing the last 6 weeks since school let out. I always got to bite my tongue to not let on about Shiloh. We sit on the back steps and eat popsicles his ma makes out of pineapple juice. I tell David about the fox I saw with the gray body and the red head, and he tells me about his Aunt Siamese cat that yowls just for the pure joy of making noise. And then I tell him about Judd Travers and how mean he is to his dogs, not mentioning Shiloh, of course. And then David says he's got a surprise to show me. We go upstairs to his room, and David says he's got a pet and asks, do I want to hold it? Sure, I tell him. What is it? Sit down and close your eyes and hold out your hand, says David. Well, I sit down on the edge of the bed and close my eyes and hold out my hands. I expect something warm and wiggly and furry to plop into my arms. Instead, I feel something cold and round and plastic, and when I look, it's a fishbowl with sand in it and a hermit crab scurrying around with a shell on its back. This is a pet? My first pet, David says. His name is Hermie. See all the shells in there? We bought them for him. At night, he gets out of one and puts on the other one, just like changing clothes. I look at David and I look at that crab in a fishbowl and I want to tell him about Shiloh and how we run up and down the far side of the hill every day and roll in the grass and how he licks my face, and I can't tell him anything. Not yet. Not ever, maybe. Hermie's sort of fun, though. We get out David's old blocks, the kind you play with. We played way back in kindergarten. And we build this big maze with walls on both sides, and we put Hermie in it, and he skids around the maze looking which way to go, and we laugh when he gets himself in a dead end. I guess any kind of pet's okay once you get used to it, but I wouldn't trade Shiloh for all the hermit crabs in the world. When can I come up to your house? David asked me when we put the blocks away. I don't know, I tell him. Ma had this sort of headache lately, and we can't make much noise at all. Boy, I'm sure asking for trouble with that one. Well, we could just stay out on the big hill, David suggests. Chase around in that field, play lookout. Don't think we ought to till she's feeling better, I say. I'll let you know. But I can come down here again next week, maybe. I tell Mrs. Howard I got to be home by late afternoon to help out, and she says, surely I can stay for lunch, as is what I'm hoping. I sit down at the table with placemats, which are little doll-sized tablecloths, one under each plate. Mrs. Howard made us each a chicken salad sandwich with lettuce and tomato and toothpicks with olives on the top to hold it all together. David's ma is like that. I think it's because she's a teacher, always looking for ways to make something better than it is. She does the same with the boys. She don't just leave us there to eat by ourselves. My ma packs us a lunch and lets us eat it out in the woods. Mrs. Howard always sits down to eat with us and talks about grown-up things. Today she tells us about how we got some new people elected to office who are going to be more honest, she hopes, than the people they defeated, and how the country's going to be better off because of it, and so will the whole state of West Virginia. David's ma thinks big. You can't just go on electing people to government because they're friends of your father or grandfather, she says, chewing on a bite of celery. Mostly, I'm thinking about food. I eat every bite of the chicken sandwich. I'm so hungry, and I don't even save some for Shiloh. And then, I'm ashamed of myself. Mrs. Howard notices the way I picked up every little crumb, and she says, got enough chicken salad left for another half sandwich, Marty. Would you like it? Sure would taste good on the walk back home, I tell her. And she sets right to work, wrapping it up for me. Shiloh's dinner, I tell myself. But lunch isn't over yet. After the sandwich, there's tapioca pudding and chocolate-covered graham crackers, which I love almost as much as Christmas. I don't see any way to get the pudding to Shiloh, so I eat that, but I ask, can I take a couple cookies along to eat on the way home too? And she opens the sack and sticks in 6 cookies. Ma would have blushed with shame if she had heard me ask this, but seems I'm at the point where I'll do almost anything for Shiloh. A lie don't seem a lie anymore when it's meant to save a dog, and right and wrong's all mixed up in my head. Worse than that, when I leave David's house, I don't even head home. First, I go down the street to the corner store and ask Mr. Wallace, does he have any sort of old cheese or lunch meat he can sell me cheap? I've got 53 cents from the cans I collected so far, and Dad turned in for me, and I show Mr. Wallace how much I got. Well, Marty, let me see what I can find back here, he said, leading me into the little room behind the counter. He's sort of talking without looking at me the way folks do when they don't want to embarrass you. Got some stuff here that's not exactly spoiled, but it's too old to sell. Wouldn't want your family getting sick on it, though. I blushed then, because my dad would die of embarrassment if he knew that Mr. Wallace is thinking that I'm buying food for our supper. But there's no way in the world I can let on about Shiloh. Wow, that's the end of reading 9. I just think this is all going to catch up with poor Marty. So what's going to happen? We just don't know. But anyway, what you can do is take out your good Google Doc and do your summary and your questions, predictions, feelings, and thoughts. And we'll see you next time for Reading 10.